Welcome, everyone. Um, 11 years ago, in 2009, I had the opportunity to move to Omaha, Nebraska, and I started going to a college called Grace University, RIP, okay? Grace University. I walked onto my dorm hall, and I met a lot of crazy people. One of the semi-normal people that I met was this guy named Luke Isaacson. Okay, awesome guy. He's actually from the North Pole. Sounds like a joke, but he's legitimately from a place called North Pole, Alaska, and his dad was once the mayor of North Pole, Alaska, making him Santa's son, which is really cool. Okay, that joke didn't land. It wasn't funny 11 years ago either. Okay, but anyways, Luke is here to talk to you a little bit about calling after high school or just calling in general. And he has some great information for you guys today on that, okay? And I trust this man of God, good friend, and I look forward to what he has to say today. So take notes, prepare to ask questions, and we'll have hopefully a text for you guys to text in questions to, and we'll get them ready to go. So without further ado, please welcome up Luke Isaacson.
Love you, man. Hey, so did any of you guys believe him or track with him when he said that I'm from the North Pole? A couple of you guys. You have a friend from the North Pole? What's their name? What was his name? Oh, okay. No worries. It's a small community, and so check it out. Literally, I was in Alaska about 11 hours ago. I got off a plane 37 minutes ago. So don't get too close. I smell like American Airlines pretzels and probably a little bit of, I don't know, those masks. They make you wear the mask for like 15 hours. It's killer. But yeah, I got off the airplane and I came here and I'm super excited to be with you guys. How has Campference been? Okay, give me a little bit more. Has it really only been about 30%? Okay, there we go. And I need to just see who I got here. Who is my high schoolers? Who are the high schoolers? Yeah. Okay, who's the middle schoolers? Okay, you're definitely 7th grade. And just kidding. I mean, you might be a senior. Jeff actually hit a growth spurt when he was in college. When I met him, he was this tall. The next year, I was like, what's up, Jeff? He just grew like a grizzly. It was crazy. Unbelievable. Seriously, I got pictures. Ask him for them. But I am excited to talk to you guys about calling. Now, who are the seniors in particular? So we got a few of you guys. Okay, who's the juniors? I want to see you as well. Okay, sweet. So you guys are probably thinking more about this, but if we're honest, everybody at some point is thinking about calling. What is God's will for my life? Is there such a thing as destiny? Are things prepared beforehand that we're supposed to do? Can I miss my calling? Those are all the things I want to talk about today. But here's the first piece of advice when it comes to calling. Watch where you're walking. So I was in Alaska just a couple of hours ago, and while I was there, the first day, there were these 2 women walking, and literally right in front of me, a bear ran across the street. Show them this little clip real fast.
Not even noticing.
So I'm in my car, and look there's Nancy and Norma just walking and having a good time. And then play the next clip.
There's a bear.
They had no idea. There's a black bear 15 feet from these women, and I'm like in my car like, do you see him? There is a bear. Have any of you guys seen a bear in real life? They're not cuddly. My wife's always like, oh my gosh, I just want to spend some time with grizzly bears. They're going to be so great. They'll love me so much. Wrong. Grizzly bears hate you, and they will eat you. And don't cuddle them because they are not nice. Black bears, though, I mean, you can make a friend or two. But grizzlies, stay away from them. But the first thing, when it comes to finding God's will, watch where you're walking. Don't just be so caught up with your friends that you don't realize when a bear is right behind you. Now, I want to ask this question just to start us off. How many of you want to change the world? How many of you want to see Omaha changed? How many of you want to see your family different? Right, almost everybody. We are conditioned in America, and I would say in the evangelical church, to be people who always think about how we are going to do something to change the world. How we are going to set ourselves up with a particular vocation, with a particular occupation that is going to impact the world in a certain way. Think about elementary school. Think about middle school. What was one of the first questions they ask? What do you want to do when you grow up? Did you guys have those situations? What do you want to do when you're older? Most people were like, I want to be a cop. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a fireman. They're preconditioning us to think, do. But when it comes to the calling, when it comes to God, it's not so much about what you do. God cares more about who. God cares more about who you're becoming. When it comes to calling, it's more about who you're becoming, not just about what you do. That is such an important thing, because your vocation is going to be cool, great, but God wants to shape you to become people who, no matter what you do, no matter what you're at, you're bearing fruit. Whether you're a firefighter, whether you're a preacher, whether you're the famous Jeff Jackson or Taylor Foster, you're bearing fruit. And what does fruit mean? It means you're doing things that naturally come out of you that reflect God's kingdom and God's glory. Does that make sense? You guys with me on that? Because oftentimes what happens is we just think, in order to change the world, I got to go do something. That's not the starting point. The first point is, who are you becoming? Who are you becoming? That's what it's all about. In the Bible, there are so many examples about this, and the one I want to focus on is a story that just massively changed my life, and then I want to share a little bit of my story as well. Are you guys familiar with Joseph's story? Joseph, the robe of many colors. You guys know that? How many of you guys went to Lifegate Middle School or elementary school? How many of you guys go to this church on a regular basis? Cool. I like the feedback. I like just to see who I'm talking to and where you're at. So Joseph is this phenomenal story, okay? Joseph, when he was probably about 8, 10 years old, he had these incredible dreams. He had these dreams where he saw himself just he saw himself as this guy who was going to rule over his family. He had these 12 brothers. He saw himself as just the leader of all of them, right? And the thing is, he was his father's favorite son, and his father loved him so much. And this made all the brothers extremely jealous, and so they hated him. They didn't love him at all. And the rest of Joseph's life, you can kind of break up into 4 different sections. And these sections all start off with P. And these sections help shape his character. It shaped who he was becoming before he actually reached his destiny. See, God had a calling on Joseph's life that he didn't reach until he went through these 4 Ps. And the first P is this, the pit. Everybody say pit. So as the story goes, as you're familiar with, Joseph, he was going out to meet his brothers one day, and his brothers devised a plan to basically kill him. One of the brothers was like, no, let's not kill him. Let's actually just throw him in a pit and make a plan after that. So they end up taking him, throwing him in this huge pit, and then later selling him into slavery. Now think about this. Think about the emotional trauma that a 10 to 13-year-old boy would have when his 12 brothers threw him into a pit. Imagine the kind of counseling that you would have to have if you faced that kind of rejection from your siblings. It would be pretty massive, wouldn't it be? Right? It was such an emotional ordeal for him. Just think about that. Put yourself in his shoes. Imagine how you would feel going through that situation, right? But God used it to shape who he was becoming. The second P was then he was sold into slavery, and he was bought by a man named Potiphar. Everybody say Potiphar. 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 Now, Potiphar was a super wealthy guy. He was in charge of the bodyguard of the Pharaoh. And what happened was he ended up hiring Joseph. Now, Joseph was just this amazing man, and so he put him in charge of basically everything in his house. Everything in his house. He was able to do whatever he wanted. Now check it out. Potiphar had a really hot wife, apparently, a really attractive wife. And this wife was always on the prowl for Joseph. Day after day, the Bible tells us that she would try to seduce Joseph. And what did Joseph do? Nope, I'm not going to do it. Nope, I'm not going to do it. I'm in charge of the house. I'm not going to touch you. You're Potiphar's wife, right? In this moment, his character was being shaped. His purity and his holiness was going to be shaped. He was also given an education and the ability to just develop skills that wouldn't have happened otherwise. Well, one day, Potiphar's wife makes an extra strong move, and Joseph does the Heisman on her, gets out of there. She then says, hey, she runs out screaming, saying, hey, he tried to lie with me, like he tried to mess with me, oh my gosh, and she falsely accused him. And what happened? Joseph then gets put in the third P, which is prison. Everybody say prison. Prison. And it was in prison where he learned patience. It was in prison where he had no other option but to trust God. He spent probably 5 years of his 20s in a cell. And then what happened next? He interprets some dreams. The cupbearer and the baker, he interprets them correctly, and he says, don't forget me when Pharaoh reinstates you. What happens? He's forgotten. And then eventually, Pharaoh has those dreams, and the cupbearer remembers Joseph in prison, and he says, hey, there's a person who can interpret your dreams. And that leads to the fourth P, which was Joseph ends up in Pharaoh's palace. Everybody say palace. That was a good palace, bro. So there's these 4 moments that ultimately ended up to this destiny, this calling that he had on his life. Now, I think for a lot of Gen Zers and a lot of millennials, check it out. When we think of doing something amazing for the world, we don't ever think about the pit. We don't think about time with Potiphar. We don't think about time in prison. We think about the palace. As a matter of fact, according to Barna studies, 26% of all Gen Zers, you guys, think you're going to be famous by 25. Is that accurate? Maybe a little bit. Why might that be? Well, we got YouTube, we got Instagram, we got TikTok, we got all sorts of stuff that's being like, hey, I can be something. Ooh, I can be famous. Ooh, I'm going to get all the attention, and then I'm going to make it, and everything's going to be good. And then you go to even conferences like this, and if you're ministry-minded, what happens? You're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be on the stage soon. I'm going to be like Taylor. I'm going to be like Pastor Les. I'm going to be up here preaching, and it's going to be awesome, and everything's going to go really great. And we just think that's the way it works. But when it comes to calling, God isn't as much concerned about the end point, the palace, as much as he's concerned about everything in between. The process. Who said that? That is exactly the word. Hey, high schoolers, you have a calling on your life, and it's called the process. It's called the process. You don't just one day wake up and become the person that you're dreaming of becoming. You're constantly being shaped and molded into that, and that's what calling's all about. And here's the thing about it, too. And this isn't original to me. This is from a pastor named Banning Liebester. I wrote his whole sermon in the back of my Bible about 10 years ago, and I have constantly referred back to it right here because what he said has forever shaped me when it comes to calling. Because I'm a guy who, I'll tell my story in a minute, but I'm a guy who has always had like these big dreams, like Joseph. I wanted to do these amazing things that made me famous, that made me look awesome. And I was always thinking about the end goal. But this sermon and what I'm about to share with you just completely shaped everything for me. So let me use somebody here. Who believes that God has called them to do something specific? What's your name? Ori? Corey. It's a great name. Corey, what has God called you to do? That's really cool. That's awesome. Where are you going to do it at? Okay, but you have a dream. Okay, perfect. Therapy business for special needs. Somebody else, tell me something God's called you to do. To teach. Where at? Oh, LifeGate. Nice. How about somebody else? A high schooler. What has God put on your life? I know you got something, bro. MBA? Music. Like what kind of music? What kind of musician do you want to be? Classical performer? What is you making it look like? Where are you at? New York? Boston? Something like that? Well, I'll use these different examples. Oftentimes, here is how we think life should go. We have a dream, teacher, special needs therapist, classical performer. And we think, well, the next step is B, I'm just going to go to school. C, I'm going to make some friends. I'm going to maybe do an internship. I'm going to look for an opportunity that ends up being really great and it's going to get me in the spot I need. D, I'm going to end up, just making it somehow. I'm going to be playing in front of crowds real fast. E, I made it. I'm teaching. Everybody loves me. I'm meeting needs of so many special needs kids. I'm performing in front of the biggest crowds. We think that God's will is often A, B, C, D, E. Nope. Any of the adults here can probably attest to this, that when it comes to God's will, here's what happens. We have a dream, A. Then what happens next? God takes us all the way over to R. And we're like, this isn't the next step. Like, I'm supposed to go to school, but God called me to YWAM. Like, this isn't what was supposed to happen. And all of a sudden, you go back to C, and you're like, hey, I just got a job as a para-teacher. This is great. The next step is going to be teaching at LifeGate. And then what happens? All of a sudden, you're over at, like, W, and you're like, oh, my gosh, I just had a kid, and now I can't be a teacher anymore? Like, what's happening? I can't believe this. What's going on? And then you're over here back at E. And you're slowly making your way in this process, but it's not logical at all. It's not chronological at all. When God calls you to something, guess what? He's going to take you to the places that are going to conform your character to fit the calling that God has on your life. Because it's not about what you do, it's about who you're becoming. Does that make sense? So Joseph's story, he had this huge dream that one day he would essentially save a nation, and he would be in the palace. He didn't get there the most logical way. He went into a pit, he went into a prison, and then he worked for Potiphar. Then he was back in prison. All of these things. God's will is not chronological like we hope. And this is huge because of this. God doesn't develop you in your dream job. God's not going to develop you in your dream job. Let me rephrase that. Generally speaking, most of the time, God doesn't develop us in our dream job. He puts us in positions to develop us for our dream job. Secondly, dream jobs aren't just handed out. Guys, you're not just going to pop off the boat and all of a sudden be handed like this golden position. No. And here's why. Because most people can't handle God's blessings. Most people can't handle God's blessings. Think about it. What would happen if I gave you $50 million tomorrow? What's your name? Ethan. What would you do with $50 million? I'm going to guess. Video games, Lamborghinis, hanging out with your friends, probably a vacation. Also doing some good investments as well, right? But do you think you could handle the family members that would be saying, Ethan, give me money? Do you think you could handle your friends who aren't your friends coming up to you all the time saying, hey, give me some money? Or just the temptation that it would bring, right? It'd be tough. Most people can't handle God's blessing. And I can give you examples. Think about politicians. Think about movie stars. Think about even pastors who've gotten famous, and then there's a huge falling. We can't handle it right away. So God begins to shape us and put us in positions and do things that end up helping us become the person who can handle the blessing and the calling that he has on your life. And what happens oftentimes is when somebody shoots up real fast, they get their 5 seconds of fame, they end up like this tree. Like this tree. Boom. Or the next one. You guys notice something about this tree? The roots. Its roots are real shallow, not deep. They're not deep. Again, calling is all about who you're becoming so that you can become people who bear fruit that lasts, who have the character that can handle whatever God wants to give you. And here's what separates people. Those who can thrive in the process are what separates people. And how do you thrive in the process? One word, faithful. You're faithful. Joseph was faithful every single step of the way. Whether he was in a pit, whether he was working for Potiphar, whether he was in prison, he was faithful to God and he was faithful with what was in front of him. I know for me, like I said a little bit, my story is one where I've always had these huge dreams. I've always wanted to do something amazing in my life. I've always wanted to be a person that matters, right? And what God's taught me is basically 2 words, that my life is to be one where I'm faithful and full of faith. And what that looks like for me, so just real quickly, my story, I grew up in Alaska, as Jeff was sharing, in a Christian home. And by the time I got to be your age, I started to walk away from my faith. I started not to really care about it. I was more interested in sports, parties, and my friends, to be honest with you. So one day, my mom knocks on my door and says, "Hey, Luke, I want to pay for your freshman year of college." And I thought, that sounds fantastic, right? If your parents offer your freshman year of college, that's always a good thing. And I said, "Okay, where to?" And she said, "Well, I want you to go to a Christian university in Omaha, and I'm going to pay for it." And I said, "Well, one thing, does it have a basketball team?" And she said, "It does." So I was like, I'm in. Let's do it. I didn't do any research. I didn't look into it. And I headed to Omaha, Nebraska, Grace University. This is before Jeff was there. And literally, I hated it. It was the worst thing in the world. I wasn't used to hanging out with Christians. I wasn't used to rules. I wasn't used to being in a small community. It was half the size of my high school. And so that year, I was like, I'm getting out of here. I have to get away from this school. I have to just leave Omaha. The city's horrible. The school's horrible. I'm out. So at the same time, something was happening though. I was like, I need to figure out what I believe about God. And a bunch of my friends, one friend and one mentor were like, "Hey, Luke, yeah, get away from the noise, get away from the people, and figure out who God is and what he says about your life." So one day I was randomly Googling YWAM, Youth with a Mission. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. And it was in Australia, and it said, "Want to make friends that last for a lifetime, encounter God, and go on this mission." And I was like, I'm in. So I get to YWAM, and my thought was like, man, if it's horrible, I'm in Australia, and that's awesome. So I get there, and about the 3rd day in, God just wrecks me. You ever have those encounters with God where you just start having boogers and tears, you're just crying, and he's revealing everything, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, God, you're so awesome." That was the first time in my life that I had one of those. And I became a brand new person. I believe that was a day where it's I went all in with God. As YWAM was going on, it's a 6-month program. One day I was going on a walk, a little prayer walk. And on this walk, I took my Bible and I started reading the Psalms. Then I started praying for myself, God, help me with this. God, help me with that. And then I started praying for my grandpa. Now, my grandpa's from Omaha. He's not a Christian at all. And while I was praying for him, I said, "God, would you break down his heart, soften his heart, and send angels to minister to him?" And I heard as clear as day the first calling on my life, which was, "No, I'm sending you. Go back to Omaha." It stopped me in my tracks. I was like, no way. There's no way I'm going back to Omaha. There's no way I'm going back to Grace. As a matter of fact, I had already been planning on being a missionary with YWAM. Like, I made my plans. Guess what? When we tell God our plans, sometimes he just laughs at us like, that's cute, son. I got different plans for you. So my buddy was walking up the trailhead, and he's like, Luke, man, you look like you've seen a ghost. And I was like, heard one. Like the Holy Ghost, he was speaking. And he was like, here's the thing. God's not going to send you anywhere you're not ready for. Another wrong theological answer from my good-hearted friend. But I was like, yep, you're right. So I devised this plan. I was going to go back home to Alaska after YWAM, and then I was going to stop in Omaha, share the gospel with my grandpa real quick, and then come back to YWAM. I was like, oh, it's going to be a great plan. Yeah, that feels good. So fast forward about 2 months, and we're in the jungles of Indonesia. It's everything you can think of, luscious green leaves, like monkeys and animals and all these things that we don't see here in Nebraska. And we were doing some village ministry. As we were driving back to the city, it was about a 3-hour drive, I was talking to the guy who leads it. His name was Mr. Seuss. Mr. Seuss, we just sparked up a conversation. I was like, tell me your story. And Mr. Seuss said this, and let me give you some background on Mr. Seuss. He was a multimillionaire in a developing country importing and exporting furniture. And Mr. Seuss was like, well, here's what happened. I did a DTS just like you when I was 30 years old. Afterwards, I had no idea what I wanted to do, so I took my Bible and I continually went up the hill behind my house and I began just to pray and say, Lord, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And he said he just felt like the Lord told him to start a business, and he just took principles from the Bible. And he got to the end of his story, and he was driving, and he looked back at me like this, and he said, Luke, if you want to be great in the kingdom of God, it's all about obedience. It's all about obedience. And at that point, that's when I was like, all right, I'm in. I'll go back to Omaha. I'll go back to Grace University. And lo and behold, I get there, and long story short, when God changes your heart, when you say yes to him, he gives you a heart to actually persevere, to be faithful. And so at this point in my life, my grandpa's not saved yet, but he's going to church every week. He's super close. I went back to Grace. Jeff Jackson was there. Other awesome things happened where God just began to open the door. And from that point, the thing that you got to grab is this. It's all about faithfulness, faithfulness, faithfulness. And even with my calling into ministry, I was a business major. I was planning on making a lot of money. But one day, I just really felt like the Lord kept calling me to ministry. People would come up to me and say, hey, Luke, you should be a pastor one day. And I was like, nah. Eventually, though, I submitted to his will and just said, all right, God, if you open up all the doors and make it clear, I'll do it. 2 months after that, I get a call from my church in Alaska, and they say, hey, Luke, you want to be the youth pastor? And I'm like, I have no idea how to, but sure. Then that summer when I'm up in Alaska, this is my junior year, I get a call from a church here in Omaha, and they said, hey, Luke, some of your friends from Grace said that you'd be a great candidate to be our youth pastor here at this church. And I said, all right, sounds good, let's do it. And as a youth pastor, I always, again, had dreams to like, man, I want to do something amazing. I want to speak to big crowds, or I want to do and lead these awesome ministries. And there were opportunities. Like there were 2 different mega churches that pursued me. And while I was at this church with a youth group of 40 kids, and I felt like the Lord said, nope, it's not about the numbers. It's about being faithful with what is in front of you, but also being full of faith. So I still have these huge dreams that I believe are going to happen at this point. But I recognize that the process takes me all over. And the key is being faithful at whatever stop you're in. No matter what you're doing, whether you're in college, whether you're working a job you don't like, whether you have friends that are just getting on your nerves, faithfulness is bearing fruit, and fruit that lasts. Fruit that shows people God's kingdom. And here's the thing, and I'll end with this, and we can do some questions that are specific. If you're being faithful and full of faith, you cannot miss God's call on your life. Seniors, if you are faithful and full of faith, you will not miss God's will for your life. You won't. You can't. It's impossible. if you're obeying his word and pursuing him and saying, God, I want to do your will, you can't miss it. In some sense, you become God's will. You become a living, acting, embodied version of that because everything you're doing is just bearing fruit. So, yeah, that's all I got for you. If you want specifics for what maybe God's calling you to, I'd be happy to answer those questions. But first, let me just pray for you guys, and then we can answer those. So, Father, I just thank you for every youth in this room. Lord, I thank you for the calling and destinies on their life, God. I thank you that, you've spoken specific things to them. And Lord, for some of us, it's like, I'm not thinking this way. Lord, I just pray that you would put deep in their heart the desire to be faithful. God, that you would give them more faith even when the times are hard. And God, that they wouldn't just think, how can I get out of a situation as fast as possible when things are getting rough? But they would think, hey, how can I glorify God and be faithful in this moment, just like Joseph? So God, bless them and keep them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Well, hey, yeah, give it up for Luke real quick, guys. Awesome.
Yeah, bro.
Well, yeah, man. I'm going to take a seat, and we can get through some of these questions. We've had some good ones coming in, so thank you, guys. And keep them coming, too, and we will do our best here. Luke is going to answer rapid-fire questions, and it's going to be pretty awesome.
I came for the question time, to be honest. I was like, man, I just want to answer questions.
Well, this is like a dream of mine, because when I met Luke, I just figured that one day in the future we would be sitting on a stage in a church asking each other questions.
How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Oh, great.
Question number 1 down. Okay, perfect. Here we go. Okay, so the first one we have here is, there are so many paths I want to take, but I can't decide which one I should go with. How do I know what God wants me to do?
Yes, I was hoping somebody would ask that. 2 things. What's in your hands? What's in your heart? I think right now there's a lot of stuff that you could do and that you want to do. I think in your 20s specifically, explore what's in your hands and what's in your heart. And what I mean by that is, what are the passions God's given you? If you have a passion for medicine, if you have a passion for people, if you have a passion for ministry, if you have a passion for video games even, pursue those with the intention of using them for the glory of God. So number 1 is passions, but then it's also hands. What are you good at? If you can play instruments, it's like, that's something God's given you. Develop that skill. If you're an amazing athlete, go to college, play ball, whatever it is, pursue that route. If you're extremely smart, go into whatever field it is. God doesn't just waste talent on people. He gives you specific skills and abilities, which I call the hands, so that you can use them for his glory. And then follow those passions as well.
That's an awesome answer. That's great. Great. Okay, the next one we have here is, oh man, how do we tell if God is telling us to go somewhere or if it is just a good opportunity?
How can we tell if God is telling us to go somewhere or if it's just a good opportunity? Ooh, that's a good one. There's no black and white answer for that, honestly. The Bible says, with many counsel, there is wisdom. And so I think that if God's telling you to go there, your spiritual mentors, whether it's pastors or parents or Christian friends, will probably, get them praying for you. If you have a desire and you have peace about it, like sometimes peace can be a cliche like thing we say at church, like I just don't have peace about it, so I'm not going to do it. Like at the same time, it's also true. I think there is moments where God gives you peace to pursue it or not, or if he checks you and says don't. Like I think. Let me back up. I think most of life works like this: God's given us His word. He gives us a green light. Go. He'll stop you if you're going in the wrong direction. And so if He's speaking something specific, like He did with me coming back to Omaha, He'll make it clear and He'll confirm it. But you have many counselors. Talk to your pastor, talk to your parents, talk to your friends, talk to wise people who have gone before you, and don't just jump into it. That's what I'd say.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, I love that. That's a good answer. Yes, okay. What if you're so concerned with the process that you forget or lose track of the calling?
Was it really a calling? That's what it comes down to. Don't get stuck. You can't get stuck in the weeds if you're always looking up at the sun. You know what I'm saying? If you know where you're going, if the North Star is in front of you, you'll go through snow, you'll trek through a whole bunch of stuff, to give you an Alaskan analogy, but you still know what you want. And so for me, like, that's where the full of faith comes in. I have my dreams, Z, but I recognize that there's a process to get there. So you kind of hold both things in being full of faith and faithful.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm going to skip down here. How do you discern what is God's calling or your own desires?
Yeah, that's also another good one.
That's a very good one.
Okay, so these things blend so much. And one of the things I want to say is, while you're your age and in your 20s, like, I don't think, as long as you're not doing anything sinful or wrong, I don't think you'll miss out on what God's called you to. And what I mean by that is, like, I know people who have, it's not necessarily the wisest thing, but they've gone to like 3 different colleges. They've tried out a whole bunch of things. And by the time they were 30, they landed exactly where they needed to be. And I think your 20s, your time in college is the perfect chance to explore who God made you to be and what passions you truly have. And there was a huge study done that took all the major leaders from the Bible, as well as some secular ones, and they found that there were these patterns as to what happens. And there were the formative years, then there was like between 20 and 30, which is like education, skills. Then there was like early moments of impact, which was like from 35 to 45, but prime time impact was like 55 to 65, because it's that's when your experience converges with your skills, converges with your education and experience. And so really use your 20s to figure out what you want to do. Did I answer that?
Yeah, I think it answers it, and I would just add too, I think sometimes we get so caught up in who God is in the world and who people will, I just want to thank God for this, rap album, when it was obviously not God honoring. So I think sometimes we can look and we can know God's calling by looking at His word and looking at our desires and testing them that way and saying, man, does this line up with what the word is saying? So I think that's good.
Yeah, your desires innately sometimes will be selfish and sinful. And that's where we have God's word and the Spirit. Yep.
Good. Okay, so what are some good ways to test? That's a good question here. How do you test your calling to see if it is from God, if you're feeling unsure about that? So what are some ways you can do that?
Well, yeah, I think one of them is to test it. If you believe that God's calling you to ministry, pray and ask Him to open up the doors, but move forward in a direction. I think I've talked to so many people your age, as well as college and young adults. That was the ministry I was doing most recently, who are like, I'm just waiting for God to tell me what to do. And I'm like, girl, He's told you what to do. Like, He's told you, go make disciples. Like, that's the goal. Like, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, go make disciples. And so I think testing it involves trying it out. And if God closes the door and shuts the opportunity, then and you can move forward. And I think, Jeff, both of us, like, we probably both dreamed of being in the NBA.
Duh.
I played a semester at Grace. That door closed. I busted my hip, so it's like, door closed, but I tried.
I had a toenail injury that really just sidelined me for about
Is that still an
4
issue?
ye's. It's still an issue, yeah.
You still getting the pedicures 3 times a week?
Yeah, 3 times,
Nice.
4
That's
times.
pretty good.
Yeah, it's not a big.
It works.
That's neither here nor there. This this is a good one. Good grief. Let's see. What if this is so good. What if you think God is calling you to something, but you're too scared to give up everything for that one thing? Oh, man, that's a great question.
What if God is calling you to something, but you're too scared to give up everything? I think the Lord is really gracious to us. So even me coming back to Omaha, like my grandpa is a blue-collar, self-made man. The first time after coming back, I said, hey, Grandpa, I want to tell you about Jesus. And here was his response: shut up. That's for women and children. It's like, oh, okay, this is the path we're going to take, all right? It's been like 8 years now. And I think the Lord is just so gracious to provide opportunities as we pray and ask him. But there's also a level of courage, I think, that's needed. And sometimes I think just load yourself up with people who will pray for you and with you. And I think that's where community becomes so huge, where if Jeff has something big that he's going through, he'll call me up and be like, Luke, I need prayer, and vice versa. And I think the more people you can have in your army who can just help you when you're discouraged, the better. But here's the other thing. I don't think that God is going to be like, I want you just to, save the world day one. No, like, again, he's going to take you through a process that prepares you for what he's calling you to. And but there is a level of courage that I think that if anybody wants to do something big, that happens. One thing I didn't mention is I think the bigger the calling, the bigger the process. Because there's things that God's going to want to prune in you to prepare you. And if you feel like God's calling you to something massive, be prepared. Be prepared for him to take you on a journey to get you ready for that.
Something that I talked with Luke about when I was making the transition from teaching over to becoming a pastor here earlier this year. I was talking to Luke, and I was kind of starting to freak out about just like, dang, this is kind of a pay cut, and it's a different. Now as a teacher, so good grief, right? No, but things were changing, and I was having trouble keeping up, and I was like, I'm trying to follow God's call. What's going to happen? Luke said to me, and I thought it was such a great thing that I've kept with me, is if God brought you to it, he'll bring you through it. And there's so much truth in that statement. There's so much truth in that, because if God is bringing you to it and we're scared, we're giving up something for the one who gives us everything. So you're not giving anything up that you won't get back, that God won't provide for. And that was such a powerful thing to me, where I was just like, man, you know what? I still worry. I'm still prone to worry, but God is, you can just rest. You can wade in the water,
Yeah, let me just add again, one of the things that pleases God most is faith. And here's the thing, faith isn't walking into something and knowing exactly how everything's going to work out. That's not faith, that's vision. You can see perfectly. Faith is actually stepping out into uncertainty with confidence that God has your back. And I think he wants us to walk in faith always. And so again, that's where that courage comes. And I think God honors the faith. A quick story real quick. So when I'm at my church right now, Waypoint, they invited me to be the college and young adult pastor. They wanted it to get started. There wasn't anything previously going on. And I love the church, love what they stand for. But the thing is, we were in a bit of a financial crunch at that point. And so my pastor, Matthew, was like, Luke, we'd love to have you, but here's the thing. We need you to raise support to start off with. And I was like, what? Like, you're gonna have me, like, raise support? I got a nice job. Like, my previous church, it was good. Everything, benefits and salary. But both my wife and I, we felt the call to go. So we take the step of faith. And it's like, all right, God's going to provide. That week, not even kidding, my neighbor who I talked to one time, comes up, knocks on my door, and says, hey, Luke, right? And I was like, yeah, John, that was his name. He's like, hey, this is really weird, but I'm starting up an escape room. Have you guys heard of escape rooms? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? And I was like, what's an escape room? I didn't know. He's like, oh, you're in a room and you figure out clues and you get out. This is a couple years ago, right? And he's like, I just feel like you'd be a great person to do it with. He had no idea that I had a business degree. He had no idea that I had some marketing experience. And so I said, well, I need paid this much. Can you do it? And he said, yeah, I can. So I was like, I'm in part-time. So literally, when you step out in faith, God honors that, especially if it's something that honors him and that he's calling you to. He'll provide. So
that's awesome. That's great. What if my passion, and I want to get this question right. I don't want to get it wrong for you here. What if my passion isn't what God calls me to do?
What if my passion isn't what God calls me to do?
So maybe there's some.
I would say there's a disconnect. I have passions that are hobbies. I like to hike mountains. I like to play ball. It's not my calling. Stuff that's nice. I think there's passions that God gives us that are great. I mean, we need to blow off steam sometimes. The calling is that thing that you can't get away with, that you feel like God has made you for. Whether that's teaching or being a therapist or, orchestra, instruments. Guys, literally, I am on 3 hours of sleep today. So, music, singing, things. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so it's true. It's true. I got right off the plane. Literally, though, at some point, when it's really God and it's you, like your passions and your calling align, and that's just a sweet spot to be. But you can have lots of passions, and they don't all have to be in line with the thing you're meant to do.
Okay, here we go. What happens if I can't hear God telling me what to do with my life if he doesn't answer?
Yes. How do you hear God's voice? Is it simply just through your conscience? Is it the rare and only time I've heard him speak like audibly? Or is this always his word? Right? Like God speaks to our conscience through other people. He can speak through a donkey if he wants, but he always gives us his word. And if you're like, I don't know what to do, here's what I would say. Who can you serve? Who can you love? Who can you share the gospel with? Go and make disciples. Like, what is the greatest commandment? Love the Lord God with all your heart, mind, and soul, right? And love your neighbor as yourself. Do that, and God will make it clear. He'll make it clear.
Good. That's great. Okay. Whew. I have a strong passion for worship ministry. How do I pursue that without the input of my own selfish desires getting in the way?
First of all, that's awesome. Yeah. Wanting to get in worship ministry is sweet. I think that's one of the things that whoever said it, it sounds like you're pretty self-aware, that you recognize that, hey, there's some stuff that's probably going to come up that might be my pride or my ego. And again, thinking of that process, I think that the Lord will put you in places as you align your heart to his, where he'll prune you. He'll prune you of that stuff, and he'll give you opportunities to be pruned. So I would say pursue it, be humble, work hard, and be open to how God wants to prune you. He's really good at doing that at particular points in our lives, and so he'll do it with you as well.
Luke and I had a conversation. He came over and we worked out, and that was the last time I worked out. Anyways, so we had a workout, and it might be true.
Shoot, dude, that was like 4 years ago.
we were having a conversation, and we were talking about just like pastoring and just different things. And what's crazy is that, we watch a lot of preachers online, and Luke and I, we just go back and forth, Stephen Furtick, Francis Chan, and all these things. And for us, we were just like, man, there's so much that can get in the way of our, what God wants us to do in the pulpit, because we may say, hey, listen, what am I wearing when I get up? How fresh am I going to look when I walk out on that stage? And it can quickly become, am I serving God or am I serving my ego? Am I serving myself? And it's something that, I'm learning to still to this day, is to die to myself every day. It's not, there may be times where we have to be reminded, and God's like, hey, you know what? This is for me. This isn't for you. And that's a very tough thing to do, but self-awareness is one of the coolest things. It's so key in what we do every day, and knowing that, hey, you know what? I love attention. Let me die to that today, because what I do in the pulpit isn't about me whatsoever. What I do when I am serving someone else is not for me, and I struggle with that at an unreal level, but I thank God because he's pruning me. He's doing that work. So that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, this is personal, okay? How did Beck, your wife,
how did you know her name?
Right, fit into this calling, fit into your calling? Still trying to figure that out. He doesn't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I landed a very beautiful woman who is amazingly talented. I think I just got lucky. Yeah, so how did my wife? Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so we met back at YWAM. She's Australian. And what's funny is when I came back to Grace, there were 2 times where I broke it off with her and said, I never want to talk to you again because my emotions were so torn and she was on the other part of the country and I was immature and God was pruning some stuff in me. When it comes to your future spouse, whether that's a husband or a wife, the thing that stuck with me is Beck became the standard. When I came back to Omaha and dated around a little bit, Beck was always the girl I was comparing all these other girls to. Every opportunity was like, man, I don't like this about them, Beck's better. Or, man, Beck's, I would always just compare and it would be against her. And so long story short, it's kind of a cool thing, but she ended up getting an exchange program to University of Washington, and I flew her to Grace. And basically, all the sparks were still there from like 3 years prior, and so we just gave it a shot. But I think that's one of the things for me. She loved God. She was pursuing Jesus, wanted similar things, and I was just very attracted to her. Here's another advice I'll give you for dating. When you want to find out who your wife or your husband's going to be, they need to be going in the same direction as you, spiritually, on where you feel like your calling is. But I think another thing that's really important that gets overlooked is they need to be going a similar speed. So for me, I would be running after God, and it's like, I date a girl who's just like, nah, not really into that. Like, I love God, but Sunday's enough. No, like, I want to be out on the mission field. Like, I want to go wherever God tells me. Beck was running as fast, if not faster. And for me, I knew, yep, that's the one. That's the one for me. So I think things need to line up. Speed needs to line up. If they're your standard, that says a lot.
Awesome. That's a great word. Okay, we have a person sent in a question just about being inspired by some of the artists, rap artists, musicians who have passed away recently, such as XXXTentacion. X, we'll just call him X. And, people like that. Huh?
Exhibit or
No.
I don't even think they know
Nobody
Exhibit.
knows. Yeah. All right, we won't go there. But, just different ones who passed away and wanting to be able to say, hey, you know what, I want to continue on that legacy. But I want to hear what God wants me to do. The question becomes, how can we know, how can I ask him what he wants me to do? So there's a passion there for something, and there is a desire to continue on in that rap game. And I think for a lot of people, they get a lot of, as far as I know, I remember teaching middle school, and a lot of them were really inspired by these rappers who spoke about depression, spoke about suicide, spoke about mental health.
Yeah.
And continuing on that legacy while still honoring God. How do you think that can happen?
I think 2 things. First of all, I think it's partly, like you said, they have a legacy, they're authentic, they're making an impact, and I'm sure that's probably one of the things that draws you to them, right? That's a really good thing. I would say, as you're pursuing what God's calling you to, if you can't rap, it's probably not through rap, If you can't sing, there's a different route. But I think you take the qualities that you love, the authenticity, the fact that they're speaking up and speaking out and doing things for these very important issues. But then just find out what is the stuff that God's put in your hands that you can do it with. Yeah. Do it with. So the other thing is, if God calls us to be apple trees, to bear apples, we can't just try and be an orange. You know what I'm saying? So
that's a good point.
We gotta be who we are, but take the essence of who they are and apply it to your life.
Right. And I would add to that too, that we want to make sure we're not idolizing any one human being. And I don't just say rappers or, but you could say preachers or any one person. I think we've got to remember that we are serving a king who gave them gifts as well. And, people can debate all day. Was this person a Christian? Did this person use their gifts correctly? Whatever. But the important thing is to look and say, hey, you know what? I like that they spoke about mental health. That's a real issue, and I can serve the kingdom of God by talking to that. But you're not honoring the person. Always be honoring God. We don't want to put any idols, anything before our calling for God.
Yep.
So it's a great thing to go after if that's the intent of the question, to go after those things.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a couple more here. Is there such thing, and this one I have a heart for because we're talking middle school, high school, so it's good. Is there such thing as a calling while I'm in middle school / high school? If so, how do I know that and use it? And can I add on to that question? Is there like a short term, is there a calling even in those moments?
Yeah. Okay. So everybody has the same calling. Let me just put it like that. Love the Lord God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. We're all called to make disciples. Now, there will be moments in your life where you have a different assignment. And I think the assignment is the particular space and time. You're in middle school. First of all, are you loving the Lord God with all your heart, mind, and soul? And then what might be the assignment? It might be starting a prayer meeting at your middle school. It might be evangelizing to your art teacher. It might be, who knows, the locker next to you. I would just ask the Lord to give you a heart for what your calling or your assignment might be in that particular moment.
That's awesome. Yeah, great. That's awesome. Okay. What do I do if my family doesn't approve of what God is calling me to do?
Yeah, that's really tough. There's no easy way to say it, but one of the things Jesus tells us, if you're going to follow after me, you have to, basically, you're giving up everything in the sense that he becomes the most important thing. And sometimes that will conflict with best friends, friend groups, coaches, and even parents. And I think you stay humble and you be faithful to God. And by humble, I mean you're humble with your parents. Don't be like yelling at them like, you don't know what God said? No, but hey, Mom, I really feel like this is important to me. And guess what? As you're humble, as you're faithful, as you're honoring to your parents, that, I believe, will cause shifts in their heart that will reap dividends down the road.
Awesome. That's great. Oh, well, Luke, we have just a couple more minutes here, and we'll go just a little bit over because we can get to a couple of these questions, and then you guys will be free to go to dinner here. Oh, man.
Give me the most juicy one.
The most juicy?
Just juicy, yeah.
Golly. Gosh, I think we've gotten to most of them. Okay. Ooh, here we go. You kind of touched on this in your speech here, or in your message. Speech?
I mean, it's speech.
I feel like I'm in high school again. Speech class? Okay.
Nice speech, pal.
Yeah, today's speech. All right. Hey, can I mess up God's call? So let's say that I'm struggling with, just X, Y, and Z. I'm going through it, and I just feel like, you know what? There's a hopelessness to figuring out, hey, you know what? I've clearly blown it. God doesn't speak to me. What do I do? Is there a way that I can lose God's call for my life? Can I outrun it? Can I fall out of it?
Yeah, that is a hairy question. Generally speaking, yes, you can absolutely miss it. There's a tension throughout Scripture of God gives us free will, but there's also this thing called his sovereignty and some call predestination, and it's like there's a tension there. And I think when you talk about it, you have to hold them in tension. You can make decisions that are absolutely going to put you on a path that isn't God's best for you. The short answer of that is who you hang out with, what you do, that kind of stuff can ultimately get you off track. And you can miss out on some amazing opportunities. But at the same time, Romans 8:28 says what? God works together all things for the good of those who have been called according to his purpose. And it talks about those who have been predestined. And I think God is so good in his sovereignty. He knows how to bring us back to that point. But here's the thing. Let's say God calls you to be a senator one day, and all of a sudden you go off the deep end and rebel like crazy and do some really stupid things and make stupid decisions. There's a good chance that might not be part of what God has for you. And so it's a hard one to answer as a black and white question. But I think just avoid that opportunity. Pursue Jesus, follow him, be faithful and full of faith, and you don't even have to worry about missing out on his will for your life.
That's good. I would just add too, there's so many stories that you hear so many people talk about, and they say, when I was in high school, when I was in college, and you've heard so many people share their stories. And I think one of the best things that you guys can do is to listen to the things, and say, like, we're adults who have gone through a whole lot. Don't put yourself through so much. Really, some of you guys who are middle schoolers and high schoolers, try your best to just say, like, man, I want to be committed. I want to surrender today, because there's a lot of heartache that can be, saved in having to learn some of those lessons, I'd say.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sweet.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for coming. We want to
Yeah,
say
thanks
thanks
for
to Luke.
having me.
Give him a hand.
Yeah, appreciate it. And if you have specific questions that we didn't answer, I'll stick around for a few minutes as well, especially that last one.
There you go. There you go.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Head outside. They're going to get dinner ready. They're still prepping a little bit. So if you guys can head towards outside, that'd be fabulous.